Hey, Muffin here. Another subscriber request for you. Saw the request to do MAUS versus TOGs. Now, when going into this, I always wanted to make sure that the competing tank against the boss tank, so to say, at least stands a chance. The TOG does. I think it has like 239 millimeters of penetration with its APCR round. Which I believe most of the TOGs, if not all TOGs, were making sure to use APCR, which is a great idea. The MAUS, one of the most well-armored tanks in the game, having 240 on the turret, 200 in the hull, but its upper glacial plate is very strong at that angle. You have very wide tracks. From the front, the MAUS is going to be a huge challenge for these TOGs. We're going to do 3 rounds. In the first one, we have 1 MAUS for 7 TOGs. We're going to see how well the TOGs can do. Really, the TOGs most likely are going to need to either get to the sides or rear of the MAUS. However, a huge disadvantage here that the TOGs have is, unlike a lot of other tanks, the TOG is very slow. However, in a recent update, which does make the TOG a little bit more enjoyable to play, they did increase that speed and maneuverability. Before, it was a bit slower. Now, in comparison to the MAUS, they're actually about the same speed. The TOG has better gun depression. I think the MAUS has 8. The TOG, I think, has 10. The DPM on the MAUS is better. I think the MAUS has about 2400. The TOG has about 2100. That 17-pounder on the TOG has a much higher rate of fire. And so the combination with APCR rounds, the very high rate of fire, if the TOGs, which is funny, watching them through this challenge, they, in their very slow, big moving tanks, are trying to flank, go around the sides, do what they can to get to those MAUS's weak spots. You can just see how much red the MAUS is, and it's funny. I would say if this was before the TOG's maneuverability update, it would have been much more challenging for the TOG to do this, because I feel like with the little bit of extra maneuverability it had, it was able to get to the flank of the MAUS. And you can just see how quickly they're just draining this MAUS's hit points. So 1 MAUS only took down 1 TOG. We're now going to go into a second round to see how 2 MAUS tanks do against 7 TOGs. Here we go on Yamato Harbor. Very smart to go into the town, as the MAUS tanks are much more of a flat ground heavy, much better for positioning, for side scraping. Now, the funny thing about the TOG compared to the MAUS, I believe the TOG is actually longer than the MAUS. The MAUS, I believe, is taller, but the TOG has a much better camo rating than the MAUS. Being a tier 10, the MAUS has a better view range. But I just thought that was funny with the TOG being longer, having a better camo rating. Both really massive tanks. Now, I believe the reason why the TOG, when initially created, was so long was really to help it get over trenches, giving it that ability to crawl over those ditches and things that were created quite easily. and being able to go through swampy territory. Now the hard thing is, being that this TOG still isn't as fast as some tanks, any that are put in a bad position or has a MAUS aggressively get up on one, there's not really a way of escaping and can really put them in a bad spot. 2 MAUS tanks doing a bit better here. So far, we've lost 3 land ships. Now 4. Pretty smart there, aiming for the tracks to try and get them stuck and flank the MAUS. It's always funny to me how sometimes when we do these lower tier tanks versus the MAUS, how the only weak spot that you can rely on sometimes is that tiny little backdoor hatch of the MAUS. If the entire thing is red and all fails, that tiny little backdoor hatch on the turret can sometimes be weak enough. I think that's probably the thinnest armor on the MAUS tank. So a very, very different outcome using 2 MAUS tanks, which makes sense. Way more hit points, much more DPM with 2 MAUS tanks working together. Yeah, so much more deadly. Now, in challenges in the past, sometimes just adding 1 or 2 more tanks on the disadvantaged side or the lower tier side can make a big difference. Now, hoping to have more TOGs, we were able to add 1 more, so now there's going to be 8 TOGs versus 2 to see what they can do here in the extra one. This was a little bit painful at the beginning to get the match started, because by doing 8 on one side, we had to put 1 on the MAUS team. Friendly fire is on, and at the beginning the original MAUS tank had to at least get far enough so that the MAUS tanks couldn't just shoot him right away and then kill him. So we had to wait for that TOG tank to at least get out of range and in a safe place before beginning. So some TOGs trying to get across, but just taking some shots. Got some coming down here toward the MAUS, quite open, not a lot of protection, but they are trying to close that gap and flank the MAUS as much as they can. The MAUS does have the high ground here, giving them a little bit of an advantage. Man, so many bounces, so many marks all up against this MAUS. Want to thank Garion for helping put together this vid. Also, thank all the subscribers for helping. You guys are awesome and what makes the channel. If anyone wants to join or help out in these vids, once again, join the Discord, get the movie crew roll by messaging any of the staff members. That way you can get the announcements on when we put the rooms together. Mal's trying to do everything he can to protect himself. You could just see once some of these sides of the MAUS are exposed and just a bit too flat, the TOG can quite easily punch through it. They are draining some of these MAUS tanks' hit points. Not sure if it's quite going to be enough though. And it doesn't look like it. They were able to get these MAUS tanks down a little bit more than halfway. Look at all those hole punches right in the side of the MAUS. Just crazy. Looks like one was able to go through the side cheek, which is actually surprising. As mentioned, the TOG only has about 230 something millimeters of penetration, and the MAUS's turret is 240. So quite impressive. The TOG was actually able, what looked like from a puncture hole mark. So I would say if there was maybe 2 more TOG tanks in this challenge, I think they could have done it. Having just one extra, I don't think was quite enough. So I hope you guys enjoyed the vid. This is the Muffin here. You guys stay cool and keep tanking.